We ask for your grace to unite us in harmony and understanding. Help us to listen to one another with open hearts, minds, and valuing each person's contribution. We place our nation under your mighty protection, defend our borders, our cities, and our people from every form of danger, whether seen or unseen. Protect us from terrorism, natural disasters, and foreign invasions. Send your angels to guard our land and grant wisdom to our security forces. May your presence surround us like a shield and keep us safe in every corner of the nation. We thank you for being our ultimate protector. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Texas Pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, and indivisible.
Thank you, Diane. Do we have any comments from the public this evening? Look like it. Okay. And 1, 2, and 3. And do we have any requests for adjustments, Jeannie? Okay, perfect. Thank you. That brings us to our consent agenda. We have a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Pass the consent agenda as presented.
I will second that.
Okay, the second, I think we have one change to the minutes.
Yeah,
I believe that because Craig
I need
was
it. Yeah.
not in attendance, so
He was here in spirit.
we can approve with that change pending. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that agenda passed. Thank you, everyone. Now we'll go to item 10, the regular monthly SJRI Woodlands Division report. Chris, is that you this time?
Unless somebody else wants it, hearing none.
We haven't heard from you.
That's never happened, has it?
Yeah. It will one day.
One day.
All right. So only thing I want to point out is on page 21 of your packet. You'll see the 3 graphs on the right side of the page. These are representing the wastewater flow. If you look at the blue line, you're going to see an uptick in September of 25. Just drawing to your attention, that is due to a calibration issue on the flow meter itself. That is not a real flow. But since it did go through the flow meter, we do have to report it to the state. So that's why it's here. We have obviously corrected it with about half a month with that. And so it has been corrected. We're also going to notate in official records that that's an error and anomaly and not to use that in any future calculations. But everything else is pretty much status quo.
So how does that happen? That discrepancy, was that a programming, a set point that got moved, something got reinstalled and updated? Just curious.
Jacob, you got
It
more?
was, yes, it was the preventative maintenance where they come and they calibrate them on a routine basis.
Right.
And when they did, whoever was doing it didn't pay attention to the fan there that basically showed the plus or minus. It's supposed to be 1%, then they ended up putting it in 50%. So that's where that discrepancy came from.
That becomes a learning moment, I assume, right? Okay, good. Any questions for Chris? How do you feel about our losses, our loss unaccounted for?
Water loss?
Mhm.
That's not, I mean, statewide water industry, actually nationwide, 5%, 5.1 for 12-month rolling is phenomenal.
Yeah, but yeah.
You want it better?
No, I'm just curious. You bet.
No, I mean, I'm
We have a
happy.
budget of 4, I guess, coming up, and we went, what we were year to date was 5.1.
So that 1% is roughly $100,000.
Yeah.
Of revenue, right? And so to me, it's margin of error when you're talking $42 million. You're talking almost 6 billion gallons of water. I think 1% is marginal at that. So
Just like to ask, just
Mhm.
see what you think.
now we are looking at it just on that same topic as we approach the budget season for FY 27. That starts a year from now. We are looking at that to see if it does need to go to 4.5% as an FY. We do expect it to creep up over time, fix water leaks, stuff like that, and we creep back down. So
Is that a function of age?
Some of it's age because the more water leaks you have, some of it's just well rehabs. The more well rehabs you have, the more flushings I have to do. We had, I think it was 2 sets of well rehabs this year that needed excessive flushing, like tens of millions of gallons. And so that jacks the number up as well. So we've reduced well flushings. When you first turn on the well, we used to always flush to get the sand out, right? So you flush, 10, 15 minutes. We stopped that a few years ago. Tank flushings have been reduced. So at this point, it's basically just age of the system and whatever occurs.
And the number will go up as our meters age as well.
No, yeah.
No?
Not with AMI, not with the smart meters. They don't have moving spinning parts.
Oh, okay.
That was the case with regular meters.
Okay.
The older they got, the slower they got. You don't have that anymore.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, now you answered that question. Okay, I just had some notes here. That's all I was looking through. Okay. Okay, anything else for Chris? Any questions? Okay, that's item 10. So we move to item 11, which is the discuss the water line renewal plan and analysis completed by HDR engineers on page 33 of your packet.
Yeah, so I can summarize what was presented at the trustee meeting last week. SDRA presented a recommendation to modify slightly the recommendations from HDR on the water line projects. The proposal is to take the 5 tier 1 and tier 2 projects and expand those over the next 10 years and space them out. And then tier 3 projects would be beyond that, so 12 or 15 years, wherever they fall. The 5 projects, the scope of each of the 5 projects would be modified slightly. If you look at that, let's see, where's. There you go. It's a good example. It's a good picture to kind of speak from. So scope perspective, this is a good example. So as you can see this project, so this is Woodlands Parkway project. It would be project number 2 out of the 5. The scope would be adjusted. The original scope had the red line, the thick red line, and the 3 bubbles that from HDR, and they admittedly included some projects that were moderate on the condition side and did have a break, but not as many breaks as obviously you can see that the main line has a lot of breaks on it. And that phenomenon kind of was consistent across the other projects as well. So the proposal would be to identify the baseline project, which in this case, on this paper, would be that thick red line, and then identify the bubbles, the lines in the bubbles as alternates or alt adds in the future. And so when we get to the point where we're going to encounter the next project, we would look at the any break history or any changes to the pipes that have occurred since we started this, since now, and identify whether or not that alternative should be added to the base or left out. But we would go with the base to start, and then over time, when we get to project 3, let's just say we look at project 2 alts. Did we do them? No. If the answer was no, is now the time to do it? Yes or no? Add them to the next project or leave them out again, and continue to monitor those other pieces or the alternates for future projects to either leave them out or bring them in. Also, as part of the proposal, every 5 years, there'd be kind of a condition-based relook at the system. Maybe not to the same level of this one, but certainly do some opportunistic testing for breaks that occur, pulling pipe out, and then also likely doing some non-destructive testing at that 5-year mark or every 5 years. So I'm in support of that philosophy. What would be needed at the MUD level is to direct your trustee to agree or not to that philosophy and what I just laid out.
And so if I remember, is it between Town Center and the Woodlands Parkway, the current rough estimate about 30 million?
Each.
Oh, each?
Yeah, I think each of the 5 projects were about 20 to 30, depending on what the projects were.
Right.
Now they would have probably gone down when you take those alts out.
Yeah. So, and then just curious, I know it's a ways off. It'll be next year sometime, right? Before we even vote on funding and all that. But would it go through the water rates, you think?
That's to be determined. I mean, each one of these projects at 20 million or 30 million even, isn't going to have a significant impact on rates.
Yeah.
But when you start adding 5 more of these and the treatment plant, that may be a different answer. So that's what we're going to need to look at, once these projects. So approving or directing your trustee to move forward with this philosophy would then trigger SDRA to put these projects in the 10-year project plan. And then obviously when we're further along with the wastewater treatment plant and whatever direction that goes, that will need to go into the 10-year project plan. And then we'll be able to kind of do a financial analysis to see, what is the path forward? Because your options generally would be, they're gonna sell bonds and then translate that debt service requirement to a water rate, a wholesale rate that you would then
Thank you.
pass through to your customer to pay for these different projects. If it got to the point where that was not palatable to the community or to the boards, then you might want to look at a rollback election to do it on the tax side. As you recall, there's about for every 100 million of expenditures, it's about a $30 a month on the water bill and about half that on the tax side if you went that route. That's just real rough, but
Yeah.
we'll have to shore that, those numbers up when the stuff gets on the 10-year project plan. But that was from the historical numbers.
Sounds good.
So I have a couple questions, if I could. The decision to pull these laterals off, right, the quote unquote optional ones. First of all, I agree with what you're doing. I like the approach we're going to take. I think it makes a lot of sense. So 100% behind all that, right? To start. I think it'd be helpful. You pulled them out. Then that's your recommendation is pulling the 3 laterals out. And I understand they have not a lot of breaks, but you're going to be right in here, right? You're going to mobilize a bunch of equipment, a bunch of stuff. It's right on Woodlands Parkway. It's going to be a busy time for whoever's dealing with this. And it doesn't seem like we really have a trade-off to say, should they be in or should they be out? We don't have any numbers to go with. We don't have any time element to really consider, or disruption, meaning if I put them in now, what does it do to the cost of the project? If I pull them out, what does it do? But what if they have to come back in 3-5 years? And I do each one of these separately. Now I'm back in that same corridor and I'm fixing these things. And these are little projects now. So I don't get my magnitude of scale working for me. I think it'd be helpful, for future directors and future folks making decisions around this is to see that trade-off along with the impact on traffic, the impact on the inconveniencing side of it, and kind of the non-economic things to just see where your thinking is going. And for us to be able to kind of weigh in on that and say, well, if it's going to cost you another 3 million, do it now, right? And then that whole area is done. If it costs you another 10 on top of 20, I don't know, maybe not, right? But we don't have that trade-off to even consider, and I think that would be important to put that into the process.
And that is some of that
And
HDR.
maybe it was done, we just don't see it here, right? This is not
Right.
something that I can see, that there's no data here for me to.
No,
think
entirely.
about.
HDR is looking at that. They're looking at the original cost of the entire line and then what the cost of just these 3 versus the main is going to be. So some of that's going to be already included. One thing to keep in mind is these lines that you see on this map, those are also water lines, the River Authority water lines in the area. So you're only doing 3 of about, 7 or 8 different lines in the area. So yeah, these have had breaks, but so have these as well, right? They're just a little bit older. We didn't have the documents for it. So counter argument is if you're going to do these 3, then you might as well do every line that comes off of it or potentially more of them as well. But related to that, you don't have the break history, nor do you have the data to go back and see every cost. But long story short, we are talking to HDR about including some of those items in there.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful. And I think Eric, or in one of the conversations we've had in the last month or so, was that at these intersections that you would kind of complete the sleeving through and underneath,
Right.
even if it's not, even though some of the ones that aren't in the little clouded areas, right? So that you're not back in the intersection when you're now doing the lateral later on. Is that correct?
Correct.
So whatever you do propose, you'll engineer that in, and we have some buffer, I guess, around the intersections if you come back in later on.
You got it.
Right, okay, all right. The other question I had was around the water rate thing. I just want to make sure I understand it. If SJRA goes out and gets a bond, let's say you do a 20-year bond, 30-year bond. 20-year bond, okay? You're gonna go spend, let's say it's $30 million. You're gonna design and then you're gonna construct. And let's say that takes 3 years, if I could just, so you're gonna spend $30 million over 3 years. You're gonna get a bond. There'll be some capitalized interest in there. There won't be any capitalized interest in there, but there'll be a payment schedule that you're gonna have of principal and interest, right? Do you drop down the cost of that principal and interest bond down to WWA over that 20-year period, ratably, as if you were paying it yourself, right?
We would, as I understand it, whatever our annual payment would be, and what we typically do is April is an interest-only payment, and October is an interest and principal payment.
Okay. Twice a year you make payments, right?
We make payments twice a year. Our bond covenants so far have required us to send you an invoice monthly and to the WWA, and the MUDs send us their pro rata of that interest payment and then interest and principal payment, which we put in the debt service fund, reserve fund.
Through the wholesale rate.
Yeah.
Right.
Depending on where
It's
the.
based on
that's being-
actual usage. Right. They're
Okay.
not coming up with your share of the pot. It's whatever your customers are using that based on that rate that's the revenue that goes back.
Okay. So let's just say it's simple math. Let's just say that $1 million a year is going to drop down into the water agency budget. That's going to go into our budgeting process. As we work through rates with you, we'll see it change to match that revenue. So you're getting the revenue you need to pay the bonds, and that comes out of actuals. It gets paid by actuals, right? So we don't do any other kind of election. We're just paying it through the water rates.
You have the choice of how you want to pay.
You've kind of simulated a bond for us, right? So
Yeah, I mean, it's,
when do we going into the tax side? And the big benefit is because Metro, right? I mean, that's sort of some of the big benefit of the tax process. Then we'd be borrowing kind of a mirror image, but I guess at a MUD level or something. But
Yeah.
help me understand how we go through this with the tax version, and why it's any better or cheaper than that, other than the Metro situation.
yeah, so multiple ways to slice it up, and we went over this a few years ago. So one is each MUD issues their own bonds for, let's say it's $30 million. You need to come up with 4 million. Or the district needs to come up with however many. Each district goes and issues bonds. That's horribly inefficient.
Right.
Every bond issue has issuance costs, bond application, reports
Yeah.
have to be done
We don't
by
like that.
engineers.
It was the worst of the options.
So
Right?
that's why
Option
it makes
4.
sense
Yeah.
for the river authority to be the
Correct.
one that issues the bonds. You get the efficiencies, way lower cost of issuance. More of the amount that is bonded actually goes to the project unless it goes for expenses.
Right.
So we're in SGRA bond world because of the efficiency,
Okay.
number one. Number two, how that flows through is gonna, and we've already done this with the 2017 bond issue for wastewater treatment rehab.
Mhm.
A component, say, if your rate is, 250, 10 cents of that is for that particular bond issue. So the same logic is going to flow through for these initial water line tranches. If it's 30 million, and then we get around to the big kahuna of wastewater treatment plant one, that'll be on the wastewater side and be a bigger chunk, but it'll flow through and just be an incremental increase, go from 250 to 260 or 260 to 270 in terms of how much each 1,000 gallons of water costs. And we've talked about it a few board meetings in the last few months about how that might play out. I think what is probably the easiest solution, and we were just talking about this in the last board meeting, is if we're going to be having a reduction on the GRP rates here early next year for the settlement with the city of Conroe, we may be able to dovetail in the reduction, that 10 cent reduction, or at least 10 cent reduction on GRP and be able to shift some of that to whatever that incremental debt service is going to be for that first and or second tranche. So you have stable rates versus you have a drop because GRP, you got to jack it back
Right,
up. And
right,
residents are going, what's going on? I just had a reduction and then I had an increase, and that makes people more irritated than just keeping it stable. So you basically move savings from one to be able to pay the debt service on another. That may allow you, again, we haven't seen the numbers from the river,
Right,
to know
right.
what that increment is, but that's possible. So that may be able to get you through one tranche, who knows, maybe two tranches
Okay.
of the water. When we get to the wastewater, the big one, there's not going to be an easy fix, I don't think, for that. I mean, even if you're doing repair as opposed to replacement, still big numbers. So at that point, then you're going to get down to the, okay, do I have a, potentially meaningful increase in my wholesale rates to be able to pay, be able to cover the wholesale piece that's coming through from the River Authority, because it's still going to be a River Authority bond.
Yep.
It's just going to be a bigger chunk that's added to the wholesale rate. So then at that point, the boards have to decide, am I going to have a more meaningful increase in my retail rate? Or would it be worth going to an election to be able to have a higher maintenance and operations tax that could cover that wholesale increase? And that would benefit your residents most likely because you have a 20% homestead exemption. And the commercial properties don't use nearly as much water as a residential. So you're essentially shifting some of the burden of that larger infrastructure cost to your commercial base from your residential base. I mean, it's a pretty nuanced argument, but the board
big-
members
it's a big number.
here are gonna have to be able to make that case to residents if you have the election to go through those steps of, look, this will save you money, as opposed to if we just take the easy way and just lop on another however many cents or dollars to your retail rate.
So SJRA can sell the bond and we, the MUDs, need to either pass it through in rates. We can also do it in our tax rates,
Correct. But because of the restrictions from Senate Bill 6,
which is the rollback line.
correct, SB2, I'm sorry. Then you have to now go through, most likely you're gonna have to go through a rollback election. If you're a developed district, which just about all the districts in the world.
You can't increase that rate more than 2.some%, 2.5%.
It's not a rate, it's revenue.
It's revenue.
Yeah, revenue above the previous year's revenue.
Okay.
And we're assuming that the numbers that are gonna come down the pike for the, the wastewater treatment plant rehab or reconstruction, whatever it ends up being, is gonna be more than what the rollback limitation is, which is why you would have to be able to sell it to your voters about why having a higher tax rate would be better than a higher retail rate. But the case is there. It's just gotta be made and educated residents.
How's it broken out? Let's say SGRA writes the bond and it comes to the Woodlands for us to split out between the MUDs. Is it done by SFDUEs
No,
or is it
it's literally how usage.
just usage?
Yeah, so your cost, pro rata, if you will, is gonna fluctuate month to month based on your usage and future build out of the rest
But
of
a
the.
portion wouldn't be assigned to like MUD 47 and 46. It's
No.
all done on usage.
Just all different usage. It does not show up as like a debt owed by MUD 47. It's
Okay.
just, you pay a higher wholesale rate.
And you'd use the same winter averaging, and that's what would be the rate for the sewer side? The wastewater treatment plant?
Well, the sewer averaging has to do with how much you're billing the retail customers for sewer. So that would all have to go into the equation of how much do you have to increase the sewer rate to account
Yeah.
for winter averaging.
There's not really we don't measure it, right? So it's measured 3 months and then that is assumed to be what it is for the next 12 months, right?
So you have
So
to look at.
that's what would be the kind of the math that would kind of spin off the math accordingly. So everyone will try to reduce their numbers and you're still gonna pay the same amount of money. It doesn't matter what the rate is gonna be, right?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. If you have other over the years, so this is a 20-something year bond, you have further build out Metro, you have further build out Hughes Landing, you have more of these, Ritz Carlton things pop up. It's going to change each district's pro rata usage. And so, your percentage could go down or up depending on if you have more usage or redevelopment that requires higher usage in the future. It's all based on usage.
How successful are MUD districts passing a rollback election?
I have not had a district do one yet. I mean, the bill's only been around a few years. I've not had one had to do it, that's had to do it yet. But it really is going to come down to a mature district that tries to, pass a new bond election. It's the same process where you just have to get out there. You have the public relations consultants as well that try to go out, educate, you'll do some town halls and workshops and all that to educate your resident. It's the same playbook. Whether it's a rollback election or a bond election, it's the same playbook.
Maybe do like they did with the road bonds, do it in May for low voter turnout.
Well, it's got to be in November.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you have to have it approved before your levy goes into place. So it has to be a November election.
All right, I just wanted to have that conversation again, since we're all kind of thinking
It's a
about it,
huge deal.
right?
It's very
Yeah.
good to go over.
And I just thought it would be helpful to go through that. The last, just more of a comment is, I think, and we've chatted about this, is I think it'd be good for water WWA to have a model where we can start kind of simulating these costs coming in, and you can see it actually going down into your rates. So that we can look at real numbers, right? We have 30 million and 20 million and 100 million and big numbers, but when you talk about our mud and our constituents and our rates, it'd be really helpful if we can kind of play some of those scenarios out in our mind. Because we may get caught up and have some funds available to put to this and defer the rollback piece for a while, right? Or really keep our rates.
You can always subsidize and just use cash on hand to basically have essentially a deficit budget is what it would almost be, to be able to pay it to offset an increase. I mean, that's one way to approach it, at least short term. I mean, you couldn't do that for 20-something years, but certainly short term.
And I think that's what directors should kind of be looking at and making some decisions on, right, the coming years. That's part of our role. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. So there is I guess the action here is, do you all, want to say, support me, support this plan? And we'll see it show up in the 10-year project plan. We'll see it starting to roll out. We'll see it kind of come through budgets, and it'll be alive and well. And I think the magic to this is that this is a durable plan, that we know we've got a lot of water lines to fix over the next decades. We're starting with these, and we have a plan to do this, and subsequent directors and MUDs are going to see this roll out, and we should not stop and start this thing any time. We should commit to it, but as more data comes in, we can accelerate or slow things down as needed, right?
Yeah.
I think we're all on the same page
Yeah.
with that.
Okay.
It says discuss or act. Do we need to act and say, go ahead, move forward?
Trustee,
Thumbs up.
So thumbs up to go with
Yeah.
this plan, and then that's all going with the
Yeah.
next month in November. Okay. Okay. Take note of that. Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was item 11, going to 12. Update on the engineering design of the Bear Branch Dam spillway and
A
auxiliary.
couple of things.
Okay.
You have a new format for the Bear Branch maintenance report that you typically receive monthly. It used to be just a kind of a one-pager with very basic information of what we did over the month. This is a little more detailed. And then as you get to the bottom of page 2, we start talking about some of the projects that are in the Bear Branch, I'll say, service area. And so obviously the Bear Branch Dam modifications, which we've talked about, Bear Branch Dam engineering inspection, which is TCQ required, and then the Bear Panther drainage improvements that Eric will be talking about in a little bit. So wanted to give you that. You'll be seeing this on a regular basis. And so if you have any questions, let me know. The agenda item is to tell you that next Thursday at the FJA board meeting, the board will consider and more than likely approve Schnabel Engineering going forward with the next phase of preliminary engineering. And that next phase is to take what they identified in the PER and then also look at an alternative spillway design, which with the idea that there's something out there that's less or more efficient and less expensive than just replacing the spillway in kind. At the last MUD meeting, they asked, well, what might that look like? And what what we've seen is, or what the consultant has suggested, is a labyrinth, an LABYRINTH
Puzzle.
labyrinth type spillway design. It has a smaller footprint. Most of the ones that, if you Google it, when you find the images on Google and on the internet, most of them are straight across. Ours would have to be staggered, sawtoothed, because this is a detention pond, and we've got to be able to match the outflows per the existing spillway so that nobody downstream sees any difference in how water is discharged. So that's one of the things that they're going to be looking at as part of this next phase. And then once we get a draft report, we will come back and do an all mud meeting, present the findings, present the cost, and then have a conversation on where to go next. Main reason we're asking them to look at this alternative design is in their PER that they presented, and you all have a copy of it on the Google Drive, is they mentioned this alternative drive or alternative design was approximately $2 million less expensive. And that could become a critical item if the federal government doesn't come through with the other $5 million. So
Does it last as long?
yes, it's concrete. It's
They're
It's-
attractive.
It's just sawtooth, yeah. And as long as it's staggered like it's supposed to be, it'll perform the same. I mentioned it's a smaller footprint, so it's not 400 foot wide. And so the gap would be filled in with earth and embankment like what's already there.
Laura, you asked the question in the last 47 meeting about increasing the capacity of the reservoir, maybe merging the drainage with the dam.
We looked at that. Remember, George Newman asked about that several years ago.
The same flow.
And you can't, because those houses around the lake were based on a certain floodplain information.
Okay.
And so if you raise the flow line of the outlet, then you actually increase the height of the water and you remove the storage that occurs between the high level and the house foundation.
No matter what you do, the storage stays the same.
And if you dig the hole deeper, all you're doing is storing more water, but you're not creating more detention.
A little while you are.
No, because
It
it's
still fills up,
Yeah,
right?
just when it fills
well,
up.
assuming that pond
fixed.
has a fixed level.
Yes,
It
correct.
it doesn't deviate
Yeah.
due to evaporation or whatever. So when the rain comes, it's going to run right over the surface and out.
We stand with the other MUDs joining in and.
That was the next part. Let's see what you've done.
I'm done. It's
Sorry.
So as I reported last month, I put it on hold purposely to get the engineering with stakeholders moving forward. That happened last month. I'm bringing it back to the non-stakeholder budget this month. We've done 2 so far. I have 3 more to go tomorrow, to basically ask for their participation in the project, in some form. The 2 so far were the 2 maybe larger participants, and they both acknowledged their interest in participating to the tune of about 1.1 million at this point. So 800 and 300 between Metro and Bud One. So that looks like those both will go forward. We'll take a vote on it next month, but that was pretty clear that was going to move in that direction. The other 3, whether they were interested or capable financially to make that same level of contribution, is not likely. So I reevaluated it and coming at it with a different philosophy to try to make a contribution more palatable and also more relatable for those boards in a different way. So the Metro, so what you saw 2 months ago was just a flat out based on connections. And
Yeah,
The percentages went all over the place, even with the existing stakeholders. So went away from that, went to hard numbers with Metro on one, and then went to a per household strategy on the other three that we'll find out tomorrow. I would like to get all 10. Whether it's a little bit or a lot, I'd like to get all 10. For y'all and the other stakeholders, any participant that comes in just makes your shares go down.
Lighten it up.
So it's, so I would say the heavy lifting of the 1.1 with the 8 and 3, that's gonna be your biggest mover. The other ones aren't gonna move the needle that much. So, and I've got a little calculation spreadsheet that I'll present to you next month, once I know the numbers from the others. But I mean, for y'all, if everybody went in, you know, you'd probably be, because you were the biggest shares to begin with, you'd probably be the biggest benefactor of any other participation to the tune of several $100,000 across Mud 47.
Thanks, yeah. Well, hopefully the philosophy carries the day and the thinking goes through to some extent.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And related a little bit, I had mentioned that we had presented to the township, and then that kind of got people fired up, probably about a month ago.
Yeah.
I went back to the township a few meetings later, after the MUDs had made the decision to move the engineering forward, and that calmed everybody down quite a bit. So, I think we're in a better spot than we were a month ago-ish, 5 weeks ago, in terms of sentiment and just fear factoring and all
We're doing
that.
something about it, not just worrying. Yeah, okay. Any other questions on this topic for Eric or Ed? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I guess that takes us through the drainage improvements. So, well, that's the next item.
Yeah, I reported last month that
Yeah.
that application been submitted.
Yeah.
What we've been doing since then was gathering all the letters of support as they were coming in, and we're getting them forwarded onto the Corps of Engineers so they can document them and put them into the application package that they'll be reviewing.
Okay, so that brings us to item 14, consider an act on pay application number 2 for the retail wastewater collection system rehab year 2.
Yeah, you are a participant in the project. However, in the second pay estimate, you did not have any work that the contractor actually did this month in your district. So there is no action tonight.
Okay, that brings us to item 15, act and receive and or act on the engineer's report.
Well, we're just keeping this as a holding
Yeah.
out, we talked about last
Mhm,
month.
mhm.
When they do, we'll add those items. So if you don't see anything
Yeah,
added
right.
under authorize or ratify for design under A, then there's not going to be anything to cover.
right. Okay, then that brings us back to you.
All right, nothing,
Attorney's report.
the general nature under the attorney's report. Happy to answer questions if you have them. I do need to cover item 17 with y'all.
Let's go to that then, item 17.
All right, 17, in our legislature's never-ending quest to increase transparency. We have another obligation to prepare a report and submit it to the comptroller. You'll see from the legislation that it's a lot of information. You're going to say, well, don't we already provide that to the state in one form or another? The answer is yes. We provide audits that have a lot of this historical tax information and bond information in it. But nevertheless, they're wanting us to repackage it into a new report and submit it to the comptroller. So we're working with all of our district clients to complete that first filing, which you'll see has a 10-year look back period from 2015 to 2025. Working a lot with the financial advisors since they, are really in tune with a lot of the historical bond information for the districts. So we'll be working with them as well as with staff here and consultants with our other districts to get those initial reports completed. They have to be filed with the comptroller by January the 1st. So we have a little bit of runway, but we are asking all of our districts to authorize the district's consultants and here staff to prepare and file those reports by the January 1st deadline.
I make a motion that we comply with this rule and authorize the preparation and filing of these documents.
Okay, second.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Approved, yes.
That's all I got.
Is the real difference just the database that they're creating, or before it's just kind of paper documents, so now it's online, kind of a digital form? Is that the meat of this?
Yeah, I mean, we had an obligation before that came out a few sessions for that, additional transparency documentation we had to provide to the comptroller. We were able to meet that by providing a copy of our audit. And the audit has a few years of historical data, and we've already been doing that for years. So we're probably pretty close to hitting that 2015 mark, but nevertheless, now we have a new format that we need to provide it in.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on that?
Nope.
Good. Okay, item 18, the general manager's report.
All right, general manager report starts on page 49. We continue to add in quite a few things on all the various things we're doing. See a picture on 50 of a manhole that looks like it's being redone. That's just kind of an example of what you might see in that project that you didn't have any work on this month. That's the type of thing, and also some relining of manholes on the inside, and then also replacement of some pipe as well throughout the system. That's just what that project will do. Want to give you an update on
Eric, sorry, while you're right there on that page 50, talking about the contamination monitoring rules. You mentioned results are within the required limits on our mud and 60 and 67. I thought on the PFAS stuff, you said there was no, like even a trace of it. So is that still the case? So we're really not seeing any. Okay.
nothing less.
So it's actually even below is there a minimum on this limit?
No, they're monitoring that. That's what this will do is be utilized to help set
Okay,
limits.
this is the beginning of that. Okay.
We're
Okay.
very fortunate to
Yeah.
have groundwater, and then our surface water is a lot of the forested land north of Lake Conroe, really. There's some package plants that lead into it, but
How do they test for the PFAS?
I don't know. The testing lab has equipment that tests for it, but I don't know how that process.
there is a guy, and you can get a tour. I'll look you up. I took you on it.
Yeah, we went on that. Yeah. Okay. All right, thanks. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to.
That's good. On 49, just at the bottom, a couple of months have asked about it, the SFDE audit. Kim and I completed that probably 6 weeks ago or so. The next step was to then take our notes and changes to the database as we went through every single parcel of properties, looked at land use, looked at actuals, looked at, what it was versus what it is, and made our notes and any modifications. The next step, once we're done with that, is it has to get put back into the electronic database, which is the GIS system. And when we went to do that, we found out that our team had been laid off at Hart. So we've been going over the last 3 or 4 weeks, been going through interviews of those folks that we're familiar with, were there at the landing, and also some other firms that do this type of work. And I think by the end of this week, or at least in the next week, we'll be able to contract with another outfit that will allow us that will do this work for us. Once we get them up and running, then they'll be able to finish. We've talked to them about basically that the SFDE audit piece is our number one priority. So they'll tackle that first. We'll get over that, and then the database has to be up. There's a lot of things that we do with GIS that we're right in. We were right on in motion when this happened. So we're working through that. Wanted to point out a couple good things. We have some of the equipment that we proposed to purchase for the ditch work. We've acquired some of that. We've also hired our first individual that will work or help that crew work on that crew. So we're continuing to interview for those positions, and the equipment's starting to come in. So we're hopeful that I think in the next week or so we have a meeting with a contractor that helps us with the bigger stuff that was on that list. And then so as I recall, as I mentioned before, we'll do a lot of the smaller stuff. There's another contractor that helps us do the bigger stuff. So we're gonna coordinate with them on what we're gonna tackle first.
Will you store that equipment off of research there at Waste Plant too, at that
Yes.
property back there?
Sure will. Want to point out, we have an anniversary, work anniversary for Shelley, 15 years.
Congratulations.
And with that, I'll pass it to John for communication.
I just wanted to ask, what was the CCVA presentation? I saw that on here, right below that, where Shelley's anniversary was.
Prince Crossing Village Association.
Ah,
Did you go to
okay.
that meeting?
No.
Yep, Doctor's Crossing, that's right.
Yeah, I met with them on the 23rd.
How well attended was their meeting?
About 15 there.
Good show.
Yeah.
Sounds like a full house.
I'm actually gonna be out at their fall festival on Sunday. So, all right, your communication report begins on page 60. We have an exciting development, something we've been working towards for quite a while. It's finally in motion now, which is a school-based water conservation education program targeted at fifth graders. So we're doing a pilot program this year in collaboration with the township and SJRA, where we will be providing teachers TEKS-based curriculum surrounding water and water conservation. They'll be taking a conservation kit home, implementing that with their parents, and then reporting back. This will just be Tufts Elementary this year as the pilot, with the goal towards expanding to all fifth graders in the system. Woodlands here. So I'll report back on how that's looking.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's the target you for STEM education is kind of the fifth graders or the.
Fifth grade is where
get
the
them
peak
interested in lots of
really
things, yeah.
focus in on water.
Yeah, right.
Bear Branch Dam, yeah, so we did get our press release out on that and then accompanying materials. We saw some e-blasts. We've got a couple news items on the homepage now. If you haven't seen those, you can QR them right there at the bottom of page 60. Community Working Group for Infrastructure Renewal Communications, they met on the 23rd for the HDR presentation on waterline assessment. They're now taking that digital toolkit out into the community. So taking the messages that have been developed through water renewal and pushing it out through their networks. Getting the ball rolling more. If you missed the USGS water table report, you can find that recording there by QRing that code there on page 61. Got some current market materials in the next couple pages. We did a lot with mud taxes, getting notification out on the adjustments, reductions in rates. The last water bill was on mud taxes, water bill ad, was on mud taxes and how they're calculated. I mean, that's something that's been a priority for you, Craig. Pushing that out through social media as well. And then we'll probably do another round of that end of the year as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it needed to be done. Page 63, you got a QR there to an article in Woodlands Community Magazine on the GRP. And then outreach calendar on page 64 noted that I'll be out at the Cochran's Crossing Festival Sunday. I will also be at the Wildflower Festival on Saturday. That's at Rob Fleming Park. You can go get some wildflower seeds there. That's a great event if you haven't been there. And then I was at Landscaping Solutions on the 27th. That was really successful. I had a lot of good conversations there. So, folks are excited to talk about water. Yeah. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Come a long way. Come a long way. Good to see. Is that it for you, Eric? Yes. Okay. Item 19 is the Woodlands Water Trustee Report. Was not in attendance. Craig filled in for me.
I can, or yeah, the the water line renewal discussion was probably the majority of the conversation. It was a pretty quick meeting. One of the things I wanted to point out was in my GRP summary, which is part of that packet. I reported that the GRP committee, in the GRP committee meeting, we made recommendation to the board of directors, to SGRA, to in response to the increased water demand coming from city of Conroe and the settlement stuff, that actually created a reduction in the rate. And so we approved or made recommendation to the board of SGRA to accept that at 10 cents. So it'll be a drop in 10 cents there. And then we'll be hearing more about what will be utilized in the 18.8 million in the settlement, the actual settlement dollars, and what that will result in, whether it's defeasance or R&R or whatever. So we'll hear that next month. So that was the other thing.
Great, good to see that. Greg, anything on your?
Yeah, no, I just asked Chris about some of the MUDs that don't want to, play in some of the rehab projects. And so it sounded like they got a good grip on budgeting and how they, bite off certain projects. But we covered that earlier.
All right, good. Any questions for Eric, Craig? Okay, any need to close for recess to a closed meeting? Okay, it's item 20. Therefore, we don't need to reconvene. We still don't have anyone from the public. And so any items for future agenda consider that we haven't already talked about. Okay, then that means we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.